The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash Etchman from Tash Invest and Ana Christina from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
where we take you from beginner to confident investor,
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us. So today we are talking about financial lessons that we've learned over the years. And before we kick it off, what's your money win or loss, your money moment of the week?
Money hack. All of mine are hacks at the moment. When I stay at hotels, I've got the Accor membership. I've spoken about it so much now, but you get 50% off of food and drinks at certain hotels. You get like Red Room hotel deals that are 40% off, but you also get a welcome drink as well. I've been making sure I book for 2 people, even though it's just me. So I get 2 welcome drinks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And you can get like wine, beer, coffee, juices, but I've been just getting juices in the morning with my breakfast. So I had my $9.60 Avo toast this morning with the 50% off, and then I had a free pineapple juice.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And an even better hack for Brisbane, I booked one night, but then I decided to stay an extra night. So I booked a second night, but as a separate booking. So I'll get 4 free drinks because they're 2 separate bookings.
Oh my gosh. And I'll be staying at the same hotel in Brisbane. So I didn't know.
So you can have one.
I'll have one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that you have all the hacks because I have no hacks recently. It is just money, like not a money win, money loss. It's just a money cost.
Yeah, I feel like I've lost heaps of money like not making use of these hacks because I've stayed at so many Accor hotels recently, but I just like forgot about the food discount and like why have I been going out to cafes for breakfast when I literally could have had a buffet for like $15.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, once you get into the practice of using
now it's
hack,
like,
then it's second nature.
And now it's at the front of my brain because I'm obsessed with it. I'm like, how else can I get 50% off something?
Yeah, I know. There's a few times where I joked. I was like, can you book my flights for me? Can you book my hotel?
I booked your hotel. Yeah, we got like our Brisbane hotel was like $100, $110 each. So good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Exciting. What's yours?
Mine's a money cost.
Money
cost. Speech pathology.
Oh.
Taking my kid to speech pathology. So the first appointment is $395 for a 45-minute session and a review, like a report. And on top of that, you have like a half an hour conversation with them one-on-one. And then after that, it's like $195 fortnightly. So it is a lot of money.
Paying privately?
Yes.
That's really hard. Yeah.
Because I tried to be on the public wait list and it was a good, it was supposed to only be 2 months, which I was like, oh, that's totally reasonable. And then someone went on leave or whatever. And they said, it's going to be over a year. And I want to get things sorted before school and so forth. And I know so many people will probably reach out and be like, that is so expensive. You can get it for cheaper. I kind of called a few different places and they're all around the same. Some of them are further. So again, you factor in location and what is more convenient. But it is so expensive. And I just got a message from someone being like, literally 5 minutes before we recorded this episode, being like, you can get a referral from a doctor and they have to check a couple of things. So I might be able to get some money back.
Yeah, maybe you could get like the 10 sessions from Medicare or something, but you only get like a little bit of the Medicare rebate, kind of like the mental health care plans work, but that depends.
I think it's 5 sessions. But then on top of that, then you have to pay for the doctor, which is, I think like, what did I say last time? $68 at my doctor.
Yeah,
again,
all the time to go there. And like, I think because a lot of people reach out to me being like, oh, my psychiatrist is cheaper. But again, like it varies state by state, city by city. Some people just aren't taking new clients. I've had some wait lists are like 8 months long. Yeah. When I worked in like under the NDIS, our standard hours were like that $195 an hour, but our specialist rates for reports were $247. So it really adds up so quickly. And like most of the time therapists don't really get a choice in what they charge. It's just like, that's the flat rate across the board.
And in a lot of cases, I think I hear from a lot of parents who have to use the NDIS for their kids and how inflated some of those prices are as well. Like they're much higher.
I think it's a kind of a bit of I think it's not being communicated the best to the public of it. It's not inflated. Like I think the speech pathology rate is that $195 an hour. Like that's just the NDIS rate that we use. Yeah. And once you consider like the cost of insurance and compliance and like the overheads that come with it, it makes sense. Like seeing how much compliance costs now, like there's definitely ways that the NDIS could use to reduce it. But yeah, I think it's a bit of like a controversial take when people are like, oh, the NDIS charges so much, when really it's just like there's lots of costs that come with running a business too.
Of course. And it's so expensive. And this is the hard part, I think, as you become a parent, as you realize, is all these hidden costs that your kid might rack up. Like my kids might need braces. My kids might not need glasses. All of those are hidden costs that you don't think about. Like, yes, of course you budget for a child
But you're not thinking about speech pathology. Like who even knows what speech pathology is half the time? Like I didn't know before I went to uni. Like I had no idea. But then I went to uni, I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. Similar to OTs, we kind of work together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you don't know these things. And as a parent, you want to make the best decisions for your kid. And a lot of that comes with finance. Like you need money to make those best decisions for your kid. Right?
And early intervention is so important with this stuff. So like getting in early if you can is the way to go.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. That's just the hard part. And we wonder why the birth rate has dropped 4.6%. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. It's very unaffordable. Housing's unaffordable. Kids are unaffordable.
All these services are so unaffordable. Yeah. And even just like the cost of getting to things as well. Driving there, paying for parking. You might get a parking fine because you stayed 10 minutes too late, say we're running late. Like all this stuff just adds up so quickly.
Yeah. And that's why talking about finances is really important because it can hopefully set us up for better decisions in the future, being able to have choice. And that's why we're going to share some of our learnings over the last little while.
I want to do like a kind of medical episode at some point to talk about all the little ways you can maybe try and get referrals cheaper, like maybe get some kind of expert to come on, but we'll bank that for later. If anyone's got any suggestions, let me know. Okay. What's lesson number 1?
Lesson number 1 is who you partner in life and in business is absolutely important.
Yes. This is such a good one. I have been really picky with who I do long-term sponsored content with. And I have partnered with Perla for the last like 3 years now, which has been, probably even longer, like the whole time I've been on Instagram, which has been amazing. And it's been so helpful. And now they do the podcast with us, which is amazing. But yeah, it really, really, really matters.
Because it matters who you connect with. One of my learnings is back in the day when I did roller derby, I partnered with a teammate to start a roller derby business. Ooh. And our values were not aligned. Our communication was not aligned. And there was someone else that was also starting a business around the same time who was like, hey, like we should chat, like we're aligned. And I wish I did. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very long story without getting into it, but it was one of those really hard lessons that I learned where it was like, who you partner with is really important. So even if you think you're aligned, if you're not actually aligned, if you don't see the same vision, if you don't see the same goals, if the communication style isn't the same, you're going to have problems in the future. So if you can't do that up front, they're just not the right person for you. And similarly with partners, I've had partners in the past where, one of the things on my to-do list was potentially have kids. And I was like, I'm thinking about that now. Like, I'm thinking about that before finding a partner. So because I know it's expensive, so there's money I'm putting aside because that's what I want to do. And if it doesn't work out and I have to make choices for myself, I want to make sure I have money aside. And I remember having a partner who was like, well, if we decide to have kids, I'll just, I'll stop my business that I'm doing and I'll get a real job because then that's more important because then I'll get proper pay and proper leave and proper all of this stuff. And it's like, no. Our values are just not aligned because you're not thinking about it now. You're not thinking about money the same way I am. You're not thinking about family the same way I am. Like we're just not aligned.
Yeah, I've always thought this because I didn't want to be with someone who wasn't thinking about money because I don't want to be stressed about money when I have kids. Like I really want to be financially stable. And if you can't have those conversations now and plan for it now, like it's probably not going to work out in the future. There's going to be so many problems during like one of the most stressful periods of your life.
Yeah. It's not enough to be like, we like the same things. Like values and who you partner in life or in business are absolutely like
so much with business stuff, especially when like the sponsors you take, they can take your brand so quickly. So making sure you're completely aligned with like the things you say no to, the like episodes you do, like our podcast, for example. I feel like we're very aligned on what we want to talk about, what's important, how to get it across to people. We're not going to be like, hey, crypto randomly. Like let's all buy crypto together. Or like let's all partner with this buy now, pay later product or something like that. Like you have to be really aligned with that kind of stuff or it can get really messy.
Do you have a checklist for your values, like what you align with when someone reaches out to you to partner with you?
No, I just already know, like no buy now, pay later.
Yeah.
Credit cards, I debated that for like almost 2 years, going backwards and forwards. I polled my audience. I had put question boxes up. I got lots of feedback. I spoke to so many people before I started working with Virgin on their credit cards, but I think I had done enough educating generally about how bad credit cards are. And I made sure Virgin was aware that I was going to say credit cards aren't for everyone in the content.
Yeah.
And I always try and make it balanced, but that was more of like a long process to get to there. Because my thought process was like, I like credit cards. I like to use the points. I feel like there's so much benefit to them to people who can use them properly, but not everyone can. So as long as I can do it balanced, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
But I think because my audience is mostly people who like have surplus income, they have jobs at the moment, they are doing okay financially. I don't have like a huge community that's full of personal debt. Like I'm not one of those debt-free community Instagrammers. So I think if I was in that situation, I probably wouldn't have done it. But yeah, it's more just like thinking about it a lot and having so many conversations with people who I know that align with me. Like I've asked you some stuff about like, should I post this? Does it sound okay?
Yeah.
I ask Emma because her values align with me quite a bit.
Yeah.
I don't ask everyone because I know not everyone aligns with me. I ask Nick from Pearl sometimes as well, like, what's your thought on this? Do you know this company? But yeah, just keeping like those people close and thinking about it that way. But there's definitely some hard no's like buy now, pay later. I would never.
Yeah.
Unless they're like, you can get 50% off for using buy now, pay later, then maybe, but probably not.
Well, values are so important, right? Like it's a core of who we are. And similarly, like that's why I love working at Pearler too. It's like focused on educating, focused on financial independence, focused on making investing accessible to everyone, democratizing investing in a certain way, right? Those are things that are important to me because I want people to know about that stuff. I want them to learn. So it makes it easier to work and be aligned with those people. And that's why even value propositions when it comes to companies, I don't know if you've heard of this term, but like a value prop is essentially like what is the value of a company and what is it giving to its customers? And that's why it's important us as consumers even to think about our values when we're purchasing things.
Yeah, I've turned down, like this is a privileged position, of course, but I've turned down so many sponsors, like other brokers that could have paid me a lot more than Pearler because Pearler aligns with my values a lot more. Like they are trying to make the finance world a better place. They want people to invest how I think people should invest. They're not trying to distract you at all. And I like that I can actually speak to the management team. Like I can talk to Nick if I've got an issue and they listen. And I value that a lot more than just being like part of the marketing machine like other people, like other companies sometimes are.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, so passionate.
Values and who you align with. So important.
Number 2, having a safety net. You lost your first job after taking a holiday?
Yeah. So this is, safety net is so important. One of my first financial learnings in life, in the real world of life, when I got my first job out of university and I was saving for a holiday in Canada at the time. You can only take up to 2 weeks. Like you only get 2 weeks holidays.
Yes.
Moving to Australia, that's a very big benefit, having a full month to be able to take holiday. And I went to Central America. And while I was there, I was like, can I extend my trip? And I was willing to take like unpaid leave. And they said, no, you have to come back. It's really important. It's going to be a busy time. I came back and the next day, a huge percentage of our company got let go. It was during the GFC. So
really, they knew that they were going to make you redundant and they're like, sorry, you can't keep your holiday.
How angry do you think I was? Like I was livid. Can you imagine you save up for so long? I think I was like, in my early 20s, first job out of university. I go on this holiday. I'm so excited. And I come back and I get let go, get laid off.
And they would have known that already. Like companies just don't make these decisions on the day.
I was livid. And not only that, there was another girl on my team who was in India as well for a family reunion and came back and also got let go. So we were in the same situation where we're like, we've saved up all this money. We've asked to extend it. You guys said no. And then you guys let us go. Anyways, I was livid, but it was one of those things where I was like, I had very little safety net because I was always pretty frugal and good with money. But it was one of those situations where it's like, now I don't have a job. I don't know where I'm going to find a job again because
I've just gone on holiday and spent my money.
I've just blown all my money on a holiday. And it was a really hard learning for me. It took me a while, like a couple months to get a job. Luckily, I moved in with my mom and so that was, and that's not a situation that a lot of people have. Like not a lot of people have family to fall back on. And that can be really, really scary. So it was just a big learning, like having a safety net, being able to make financial decisions and not getting screwed.
Yeah. When I bought my first apartment, I had 2 casual jobs. As soon as I bought it, I got made redundant from one of them. But it was okay because I always liked the idea of having multiple jobs. Like I never, until like very recently, I guess it's like business stuff, but I still have multiple streams of income. But I never like just wanted to work one job. I always kept one of my casual jobs on top of doing other things. So I knew that I could always go and get more work if I needed it. And it worked out fine because I ended up getting paid more at my other job. I took a full-time position there, plus like would work overtime and stuff. But like, that was my version of a safety net. Like I had savings, of course, as well. But I always liked like keeping my options open with other employers. And I always had my name as a casual on jobs. Even if I hadn't been there in like 6 months, I'd still send them a text being like, hey, still want to like, let me know if you need me kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really important, having various income streams. Because I was the same. I had so many different jobs all through university. I had about like 3 jobs at a time all the time. They kind of set me up for different skill sets. And also, if you lost one, you had the other ones to jump in on. It was just that this was the first time that it was like a real full-time job, 9 to 5, like you're going off to work.
I think it's important not to burn bridges when you leave because I feel like even now I could be like, oh, hey, I need some shifts. Can I like come back or something? And they'll be like, yeah, cool. Because like the industry I worked in was always really understaffed. And I worked with a lot of clients privately as well in the end for support work. But even just like having those people that you can be like, hey, can you be my backup? Like I need some more work. Do you know anyone who needs someone at the moment? Like that's such a good safety net as well.
Yeah. You never know when you have to go back to a different job, or even those people might help you get a job in the future. Maybe not at that same spot, right? Goes back to this idea of networking and staying connected.
Even like when I was working overtime, it always wasn't because I needed the money, but because I wanted to keep my options open too. Like I would help other people out so that if I needed work, it would be there for me as well. So like that's like such a good way to think of like, maybe I don't want to work, but maybe I'll do it so I'm in their good books.
Yeah. Yeah. And just having your foot in the door.
And also emergency funds, so important.
So important. Yes. Luckily I had an emergency fund, but safety net, having something aligned is really important.
This was an interesting one you wrote down. You are your own dependent, looking out for yourself.
Yeah. So I think that it comes back to a story where I was in a car accident. And at the time, it made me really realize that had I not had savings, I had no one to rely on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we talked a little bit about this, about having family who could be there for you. But it was, I'm that far in my life where it's like, you don't want to move in
when you're not
your parents.
With your, like now you're with your partner, like you have your family, you could be like, oh, your partner can work for a little bit. But back then you're like, it's just me.
It was just me. And I was working a job. I had obviously savings. I had money aside, but then I got in a car accident and I wasn't able to work for a while. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life. At the time, I was very much playing roller derby. I was like traveling Canada and the US. I was coaching internationally. I was set up. I was supposed to play in the World Cup and I got in this car accident or I was shortlisted to play in the World Cup and I got in this car accident and
Crazy, what a life.
Changed my life.
I was going to be in the World Cup for roller derby.
Well, yeah, I got shortlisted.
Close.
So I wasn't like, if someone kind of dropped out, I would have been there, but I was like, my name was on the roster of potential there. And then this car accident changed my life. And my whole life was around roller derby, right? Like I was trying to start this business in derby. I was coaching everywhere. I was getting like, it was an awesome life because I loved it. It was supporting people, empowering people, and playing a sport I love, right? Like it's awesome. And then you get in this car accident and you're like, is it viable to do this stuff that you're trying to build something out of it, or what's more important to me? And it was a moment where it was like, my brain's important to me because I'm going to have to use that for the rest of my life if I want to.
Another concussion.
Yeah, I can't have another concussion. And if I'm off work right now, who's going to pay for everything, right? Like luckily, public healthcare in Canada is free. I don't have to jump through these hoops as we do here in Australia. It's always funny because people are always like, oh, isn't Canada like Australia? I'm like, no, Australia is like a hybrid of the US and Canada.
Yeah. And in between, that doesn't quite work at the moment.
Doesn't quite work.
No.
But at least that was free. But losing out on work, losing out on income, still having to pay rent, still having to pay for a life. That was one of those things where it's like, you are your own dependent and you need to figure out. It goes back to that safety net, but you have to kind of think about yourself as your own individual. You know, a partner is not a saving plan, right?
No.
Your parents aren't a savings plan. Like it is you. So what are you doing for yourself?
Yeah, I've read enough of those like thriller drama books to be like, so much can happen. And like some of them are obviously fiction, but some are like based on people's real lives, and like so much can happen and your life can change. And you have to take responsibility for yourself and be like, what am I going to do to keep myself safe in the future? Yeah.
And it was that turning point for me as well, thinking about my career. Like, what do I love my job? No, I don't love my job. My job allowed me to do what I was passionate about, which was roller derby. But now that I don't have roller derby, and that was honestly the hardest breakup of my life, was letting go of roller derby.
Yeah.
Because you just create a network and
that whole identity is gone.
Your
like,
identity.
This is what I do. Yeah.
Totally. And this is why people who have played sports and then something happens to them lose their identity and fall into depression, because all of a sudden you're not who you were.
Yeah.
Right?
I used to swim competitively in high school. So we were training for like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, most days, and we do gym sessions as well. I was like very academically driven in high school as well. So I was just so busy all the time. And then when I stopped swimming, I was like, what do I do with all my free time? I've got like 5 hours a day that are free now. And I'm also not seeing my friends all the time anymore. Yep. So trying to find stuff to replace that has been interesting. But I like was still active. I went to the gym lots, and then I ended up replacing it with all the travel I did. But yeah, it's like that moment of like, well, now what?
Who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was one of
like chlorine all the time.
Yeah, for sure. So your identity changes, but also you have to think about like, what does my future look like? What am I excited about? Travel, right? Okay, go travel, go do those things. How do you empower that? And the other thing for me was like, I don't love my job, but it's a means to do the thing that I love. So if I can't do the thing I love,
why am I doing this job?
Why am I doing this job? And that was one of the catalysts of me being like, I want to move to another country. Look at my life now. I'm in Australia. I wouldn't have been here had that car accident not happened.
Double author.
Yeah.
So many things have happened since then.
So much has happened. Yeah. And that was also the thing where I wanted some security, and it made me be like, I want to buy an apartment.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's important to like reflect on your life as well before those big things happen. I feel like a lot of us wait for those big moments to be like, oh, maybe I should do something else. But like, as you go along, like reflect and be like, is this where I am? Like, do I want to try something else? Is this like, could I be doing something else that would make me happier? Or can I like take a different path? Like try and reflect on that before you get to those big moments too.
Yeah, indeed.
Taking calculated risks. Lots of people think me quitting my job was risky, but I feel like it was a bigger risk to not quit my job. Because a lot of people have asked me like, oh, how did you make that decision? Like that must have been so scary. But I feel like it got to the point for me where I was thinking like, if I don't do this, I might regret it. Like I have to try it. Like it's such a risk to not actually give it a go and see where it goes.
This goes back to just what we just talked about, right? Like trying things, like not being afraid of them. Like what, are you waiting for the big thing to happen to you? Like to meet the person, to lose the job, to do the thing. It's like, you need to know where you want to go. You need to have your goals. Like, I think it's so important to even have a vision of where you want to see your life because then you can get there.
But you don't even need like a complete vision. Like, I don't know what I want my life to look like anymore, but I'm happy to try different things and see where it goes. And like, I think I can always go back to some kind of healthcare job. I can always go back to some kind of 9-to-5 job if I really want to. But I think it's important to try all these different things and see like what happens.
I also think that without being like, it's an age thing. Like, I don't want to be that person.
You can be that person.
But it is really true. I was able to take way more risk in my 20s.
Oh yeah, when you moved to Australia.
Yeah.
You did all these things. Yeah.
I can't do that now, right?
Not in the same way. You can't be like, sorry, we're leaving. My parents traveled around a lot when I was a kid and it was fine. But you need to like, everyone's sacrificing then.
Yeah.
And especially if both partners work. You can't be like, sorry, my partner, you have to quit your job because I want to go to, I don't know, wherever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like, if you're younger in your life, taking those risks, trying new things, taking calculated risks, right? Like you want to make sure you have money in the bank. You want to be sure that you can eat, but there's also sometimes you need to double down, right?
Yeah. Like I did obviously this is a side hustle for 3 years before and I had some recurring sponsors. So I knew that I had enough as like a part-time job, but I also knew I could pick up extra shifts if I wanted. But yeah, reflecting on the age thing is interesting because if I had kids and I was married, I'd probably be like, I'd have to ask so many people and I'd have to consider so many more things. I couldn't just be like, well, I'm sorted. I've got my 50 grand a year. I'm good to go. But it's not the same with other people relying on you.
It's an ongoing conversation in our house, right? Because as someone who was the higher income earner, going down to part-time, writing 2 books, that impacts my family life. That impacts my partner. That impacts me as like, am I a good parent and partner, right? Like those are big things. But the trade-off is doing something passionate and I love and that I want to do.
And you're growing your personal brands. Like so much good stuff will come from having 2 great books.
But it also aligns with like my partner having the same values and being like, I believe in you. I'm supporting you. This is your dream. I'm going to do that. But also having that, making those calculated risks because we do have savings in the bank. I do have investments. Had I not thought about that in the future, it'd be
I've
harder.
kind of reflected on this a bit more with like us traveling for the book tour. Like I can go just book stuff and I just tell my partner and I'm like, oh, I'm going away. You can come if you want. Like, you're free to join. But seeing you like kind of navigate the conversations and like, I have to leave my kids at home and it's unfair to him to do that too close together. We have to spread it out. Like these are the pros and cons, budgeting like family budgets as well. Like that's all so much more complex. Whereas I'm just like, oh, I booked it.
Yeah.
Join me if you'd like.
I'm so jealous because I remember those days. I remember those days, you know, like being like, hey, I used to work in SF, right? Like my old company used to just send me to SF and I'd
like San
Francisco, sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
Amazing.
So I'd spend like months in San Francisco, which was rad because I'd just fly up to Vancouver for a short time, see my family, come back down for work remotely. Like it was amazing, right? And my partner could join me if they wanted to or didn't.
Yeah,
didn't matter. Now it's like, okay.
2 tiny humans.
I've got 2 tiny humans. What days are they in school?
Your partner has a job and with important things to do. It's not like you have a stay-at-home parent helping you.
Yeah. And the conversation, right? Like going to Perth, I'm like, oh, I would really want to see the quokkas. I'd love to see the family. And then when you run the numbers of flights for 4 humans, hotel for that day, you need to get a car, you need to, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not.
Especially when your family got sick last time. I think that kind of put a dent in everything. Yeah.
I know. Yes. We all got sick on our family trip.
I couldn't imagine dealing with all the sickness. I admire you so much.
Oh, thank you for your patience though.
I could not do it right now. I'm just like, oh my God.
I wish I had someone in my life when I was younger to just be like, how damn hard it is. Like it
opened my eyes. Like I've obviously heard people talk about it, but like seeing it play out, like the kids alternating being sick, it just feels like
it's relentless.
So evil sometimes. Like, oh, they're not evil, but just like the timing of it all is like how.
Yeah. And that's why I appreciate like Nick as my boss, right? Like he has 3 kids and just being like, you're at the hospital because your kid broke your arm. Like I get it. Yeah, and you get it. You understand my life. I understand your life. Like there's just way more empathy.
Yeah.
So that's why I talk about, I don't want to be that person who's like, I'm talking about my kids all the time, but I just think it's so
but
important.
that's such a big part of your life. And I feel like most people don't speak about it enough. Like you have like the mummy bloggers online, but you don't see like everyday people talk about it as much. Like, these people have kids. Like often you see like these CEOs have 2 kids. But you're like, well, how are you managing? Like where are they?
Yeah, exactly. And what I love actually, because my partner and I work in the same room, like in the same office. We work in our same office in our bedroom.
In your firm, as Emma would say.
Yeah, in our firm. I love it. I can hear my partner talk a lot about family life and hearing his male counterparts also talk about being involved in their kids' lives, which I don't think was really there as much prior to COVID. Like having fathers talk more about it, having
people working from home, like you see kids in the background. Now you hear them crying in the background. Like we didn't quite have that when everyone was in the office and you just pretended they didn't exist at home. Yeah, like obviously people are leaving to pick them up and stuff, but it wasn't in the home where you could see them.
For sure, yeah. That was a tangent, but also an important one for everyone.
This was a great chat. We actually had 10 lessons written down, but I think we're going to save the rest of them for another episode because I feel like we're talking so much about each one and it's been so good.
Yeah, great stories and learnings.
Wait for part 2, maybe in a few months.
Yay.
We really value your lessons as well. So send us a message, let us know.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invest or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative, 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative, 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.